All right, my friends, welcome back to a Build Show Live presentation. We got a great presentation today. We are talking windows and specifically window frame materials. Let me introduce my guests that we've got with us in studio today. I'll start over here. My builder buddy Jeremy from Risher Martin. He and Chris have been builder partners for how many years now?
Almost 14.
Almost 14. However, Jeremy is a second generation builder. His dad was a builder. So he's got that really second kind of ingrained knowledge as a builder that was a teenager cleaning up job sites. That's a smart builder, and I'm really glad to have Jeremy here to give another builder's perspective on this issue of window frames and choosing windows. To my left, I've got Tim, who represents Marvin. If you guys don't realize, this is a Marvin sponsored video. And Tim, I'm telling these guys and I'm telling you, I kind of want to make this live webinar a bit of a sales presentation, a bit of a, hey, Jeremy and I happened to be at IBS and you were at the Marvin booth, and what would we talk about? Because when I do these webinars, I'm always thinking about, you know, what would Matt Reisinger, what would Jeremy from 10 years ago want to know on this topic? And of course, we also get some remodelers and some architects who join in. Yep. Of course, Jeremy and I remodel as well. We also sometimes get homeowners on here, but really this is a bit of a builder to Marvin sales guy. What do we need to know about this? And of course, we're going to spend a lot of time, Tim, on your particular product lineup.
Right.
And then to my far left, Leno Garza. Leno's with Builders First Source. Of course, Builders First Source, big sponsor of the Build Show. Leno, what's your title again? I actually don't remember.
So I'm Windows Sales Manager. Premium Windows Sales Manager, because we have two different divisions.
Gotcha. And Leno is based here in Texas, but kind of manages the greater market. So he's got a bunch of salespeople underneath him. He's also got 20 years knowledge in the window industry on the sales side. Also worked for a manufacturer for a while, and was around for the merger between BMC and BFS, which happened 4 or 5 years ago. So I appreciate you coming to join us today.
Thank you.
With that being said, let's jump in with Tim. Tim, I'd like for you to give us kind of the overview. You know, if people are joining this webinar, they want to know about window options, frame options. What's the difference? Where do we start? And I know you've got a bunch of samples with us too. Let's feel free to touch and feel a little bit on those.
Absolutely. Well, first off, if we're interacting as a builder Marvin conversation, I always like to qualify a little bit about who we are as Marvin. So we are a family-owned and operated company. It makes us a little unique that not only have we been family held for 110 years, but we are on our 5th generation. The 4th generation is managing the business right now, but we are on our 5th generation. Very proud of that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, very unique for us. Most, we're the only major manufacturer out there that is family owned and operated. So we think it's something that helps us stand out from the crowd. It helps us plan for the long term in terms of how we look at our products, materials, and some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
I think that's an interesting point because I suspect almost everybody watching, including these two builders, are family-owned companies.
Absolutely.
And I think as a family-owned company, Jeremy and I make better decisions than some of the corporate builders that have Wall Street to account to. And so I appreciate that about you guys. Hey, one pause though I wanted to mention. If you guys are watching this live, if you're watching this later, you won't be able to answer Q&A. But if you're watching this live, on your Zoom login, there's a Q&A tab on here on the bottom. Don't work on chat. Don't chat. I'm not looking at it. No one's looking at it. If you have a question while we're talking, hit the Q&A tab on here because I will be monitoring those. And towards the end of the presentation, the last 15-ish, maybe 20 minutes, we'll switch to Q&A and I'll throw those out to this crew in front of you. So Q&A is the place to ask your questions. And again, you can throw those up at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about frame and materials that go into the frames and how windows really are constructed, where the performance comes from. At Marvin, we focus on 3 main materials. We focus on a pull-treated fiberglass, which we're going to start with, as well as aluminum and solid wood. Okay. So those are the 3 materials that we focus on. We believe it gives us a better combination of both aesthetic and performance. And I'll explain a little bit why, and we'll see what kind of questions we get.
Actually, I have a question on that right now, if you don't mind. Just if we were in a trade show booth, I know I'd ask this. What's the difference between pull-treated fiberglass and regular, like maybe boat fiberglass?
Absolutely. A lot of it comes around performance. So pull-treated fiberglass is a thermal set or a heat set process, so it adds a lot of structural strength to it. When you think about fiberglass, most people think of a boat or a car or something like that. That's a matting process. So that's really layering fiberglass together and then putting a finish on top. What we're doing here with this material is we're getting what we call a thin wall technology. And this is where a lot of the science and benefits at. But we're pulling this through an elongated die, so a die that can be 10 to 20 feet in length, and heat it up to an extreme temperature. So we heat that die up to a couple hundred degrees, and as we're pulling through the fiberglass and the resins, we create a new composite. So we're taking two materials, pulling them together, and creating a new material that adds both strength and durability.
Okay, that
So
makes a lot of
it's
sense.
a really cool process. One other unique thing for our fiberglass would be, and something you have to do with a pultrusion, is the capping finish that we have. So we actually apply our finish during the curing process, during the cool down process, and it's actually put on with a large amount of pressure to that. So this allows us to have an industry best certified finish on this product. So
in other words, that gray that I'm seeing there is not the color of the fiberglass necessarily, and is not painted on per se afterwards. It's implied as part of that process of
That's right.
pulling the fiberglass.
it's an acrylic
pultrusion.
capping that is applied on there. So in the simplest terms, think of a taillight on a car. You know, the durability of that, even with the sun and the exposure it has over the years, that color stays true. We're using a similar type of process to that. So you'll notice on the pultrusion, it is a little different color here
point
that
it
we
towards that
have.
camera
So
right there.
there is a bit of grayish color. We do that just for integrity to the product.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
I'm pointing at the wrong camera.
That's right. But for the most part, it's the finish here. And what we think is important when you're talking about all these materials is combining the substrate with a finish that enhances the substrate and allows you to have a life cycle.
Got it.
So as we jump in and look at the frame here, though, this is our Essential product. Now, Essential is an all pultruded fiberglass product. We've been manufacturing this product since 2006. It's been highly successful for us. And as we can show here, I'm showing a casement product with our gunmetal gray. This is a color that was new to us this year.
That's pretty.
It's a beautiful color, been very well received.
I like that color.
This is one of the standout differences for this product. There are other preferences in material, but this material allows us to go to a darker color and really add to the life cycle to it. As we're in Austin right now, I would tell you the dark colors are extremely popular. We're also showing it in a full view here, as well as our ebony.
Yeah, so this is the same window in a full-size version of this cutaway you're seeing.
Absolutely. Again, when I look at this product, I say, you know, dark colors being the trend, you have to have the right type of material. You want something that doesn't expand and contract and move a lot. You're going to get that with pultruded fiberglass. It's very inert, so it's very still in the process. It moves no more than the glass you have in the unit, because basically it is glass. That's the main component to the product. Now,
I hadn't thought about it that way. That's an interesting way to put it.
absolutely, they're
Fiberglass, made from glass.
made from glass.
Same expansion and contraction as the glass IGU unit.
Absolutely. And again, the way we manufacture, you can see we use what we call corner key technology, where we leverage the strength of the fiberglass, which is a very high tensile strength, and we leverage that with these corners so that as you put together, the core strength of this product is the fiberglass, not the glass. If you get into other materials, a lot of times they're leaning on the glass component itself to add 80% of the structural strength of the unit. We're not doing that here. Again, we believe the frame itself and the sash should add the strength to the product. It'll give you higher design pressures and perform better for you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. Talk to me for a minute about cost on this, because I don't want to get too far beyond the start of the program, and I want you guys to know that we're gonna talk about relative cost, not absolute cost, because you may be watching this in Austin, Texas, or Vancouver, British Columbia, or Kansas, and your costs are going to vary, obviously. But can you give us some relative cost data on, for instance, that all fiberglass product of yours, the Essential line?
Yeah, so a lot of times people would compare this to what they consider vinyl or a plastic product that's out there. From a performance standpoint, there's not a lot of comparisons to it. It's a high-performing product. What's unique to this product, though, is I would say, and Leno, I would ask for your expertise on this as well. I would say this unit right behind you, which is a casement unit with a dark color, in many instances, there's no price difference. If not, maybe this product could be less expensive than a vinyl product.
Wow.
In general, I would say you might expect an increase of anywhere from 10 to 15%, depending on where you're at. But we're finding more and more people in the trend going towards casements, awnings, more contemporary looks with a dark color. And as you start to add these options in the dark color to this, the material cost for a product like vinyl, which is considered a price point product, they become equalized very quickly.
That's very interesting.
Right, because it's a painted product when you go to vinyl typically, or a laminated product. So it's an expensive process, but also I think that it's a service issue for a vinyl product that's painted. The paint comes off, and as much as it moves around in this heat, it becomes an issue. So you're going to pay a higher margin for it because it may be a serviced product that's going to.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So the headline would be, it's really not a cost issue, I would say here. It's more of an education.
Yep.
And as we talk about here, we talk about vinyl expansion and contraction. My big conversation to you as builders would be, especially here in Austin, it's a little warm here today. I come from Virginia.
It's 105 today in Texas.
I thought it was
Normal.
warm.
It's not that warm.
I thought it was warm in
normal day.
Virginia. You guys are casually walking around at 105 and it's no problem, which I can appreciate. But what you really have is a window, which is part of your envelope. You get some very large extremes here. In the middle of the summer, you can have a 100-degree swing in terms of surface temperature. When you deal with vinyl or PVC products, that expansion and contraction rate leads to discoloration, it leads to gaps in its corners, and it can lead to a lot of concerns around water infiltration or overall performance degradation, not over a matter of years, but over a matter of months.
Yeah.
So again, we think this is a great solution, whether you're in an extreme warm or cold climate. This really settles into a nice spot.
Yeah. Now, we're not going to necessarily spend a lot of time bashing vinyl or plastic windows, but I would tell you from my experience, I don't install them in my houses, and a fiberglass product is really my minimum spec. Would you tend to agree with that, Jeremy?
I would agree.
Yeah. So let's move on then, because actually your next product, I think, is an interesting product that I actually have the most experience with, because my very first house that I built in Austin, Texas, I was a custom builder in 2005. I put this product in.
Yeah, and I would say, like in Austin, Leno and his team's done a great job establishing our Elevate product, formerly known as Integrity, but Elevate product in the marketplace. Now, what we've done here is we've taken all of what we just talked about in terms of the advantage of a protruded fiberglass, but we've added the natural beauty of wood to this. So wood is a great material. It's a great natural insulator, and it adds a lot of aesthetic value. This particular product, you're going to see a solid wood interior attached to a base fiberglass frame. So fiberglass is the base component of this product, and we are actually cladding the interior with a solid wood, not a laminate or some alternative to that. It's a solid wood ponderosa pine material. The benefits here, again, you get some flexibility in terms of internal colors, you get some flexibility in terms of performance, but it is a great natural insulator and a great sound deadener. So performance numbers continue to perform at a very high level, and exterior wise, we get all the benefits we just talked about before. So you get a great life cycle, you get a great durability, and in a lot of ways you get a lot of flexibility over time.
Yeah. Now, one question I've got for you on that sample that you're showing us there, it looks like that's a pre-painted, pre-finished product, both outside and inside. Is that always true, or is that an option?
It's an option, and it's a good point out. This day and age, we find factory pre-finish to be a great option for the builder. So I'd always be interested in your perspectives to this, but it allows us to be the window maker, put that finish on there, and have a warranty that comes around behind that a little differently. It takes a lot of ease of consistency as well to the product. So we have been very successful. Predominantly, you'll see white was historically a great interior pre-finish, but as the darker colors will come in, this ebony interior finish has been a real home run.
We're seeing that a lot in Texas.
It's so popular right now, and really people think of it as kind of a new color, but it's also a very traditional color. So you get in areas of the Northeast, or maybe some of your fans are in the Pacific Northwest. This is a great color that has been around for years, and it just plays so well for the aesthetics, interior and exterior.
Yeah, that's an interesting product in that I would suspect that most builders, even experienced builders, when they walk up to a finished house, don't know that's not a wood window.
I would agree.
Right,
Would you say too?
Yes, and so we sell quite a bit of this because we get people who moved here from either the Midwest or the East Coast that are accustomed to wood windows, but the maintenance that they intake. So they love this product because it looks like wood.
Yep.
But you have a fiberglass product, so anything that's touching the exterior is fiberglass, but you still get the warmth of the wood on the inside.
Yeah, I like that.
One of the unique things about this, and again, the window behind us is also an Elevate product. Now we're showing the inside here. So this is a wood pre-finished to the inside, see the quality look. If we turn that around aesthetically, it's going to, again, look like a wood exterior to us. But I mentioned flexibility before. One of the interesting characteristics of this fiberglass is it is paintable. So over time, we find places like in the Northeast where maybe there's a different color flex that they want to do, or over time the colors change. You can rough this up a little bit with some sandpaper or steel wool and then paint over this. And because it doesn't expand and contract like some other materials, and it doesn't permeate moisture like some materials do, it's really as good as your exterior finish you put on there. So if you get a good high quality exterior paint, this can be a very durable, flexible solution to give you a custom color as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I'm curious, have you used either of these two lines from Marvin, which is the Essential and Elevate? Did I say that right?
That's
Formerly
right.
Integrity, by the way, for some of the old school builders. They did a brand change, I don't know, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah,
something
about
like
5
that.
years ago, yeah.
Have you used any of these over the past?
Predominantly, we use the aluminum clad, which he's going to get to next. That's the product that is in most of our houses. But often we'll get into a steam shower or a bath area which can be super wet. So we will actually intermix a couple of your products. Where we will go with like what I call the Ultrex, which is probably the wrong terminology to use right now. But the key is what you just mentioned about being able to paint this. I was nervous about that because we had a clad product next to an Ultrex product and we needed them to match. So we did. We scuffed it with, I think it was 320 or 400 grit. We painted it. I'd never done it before. I was pretty nervous about it, worried about callbacks and warranty issues, and that was years ago, and it seems to be performing well. So I can say that we have painted that product on the outside, and it's performed really well. So I was
really
very
smart.
surprised by
That's
that.
a great story, yeah.
That's an interesting mix, and I don't know that everyone thinks about that, but if you've got a wet, a steamy
Yes.
Area, really smart to go to an all fiberglass product because now you don't have that wood movement on the inside of the house.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could do some things to the wood window on the inside of a steam shower to eliminate some of those issues, but for us it's a risk thing. And because you have the product line and we can get it in awnings, we can get it in casements, we can get all these different configurations, we'll just, across the front elevation of a house, we'll just mix them right in there. And as long as we can paint them to match, it works out great. So we do that quite a bit, and I love having that flexibility.
I love it.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to mix in the product lines there. And again, we design these products so where you have some color match capabilities and things. We've really evolved over the years to make sure, especially you get in the darker colors, the matting, the finishes, if you do need to mix that in, that you have some consistency. But that flexibility on this always gives you that one avenue that's unique to this particular type of composite material.
Yeah.
You did mention Ultrex. I should mention that is our branding for this. So you're completely appropriate. When you call that Ultrex, that's our term for our pultruded process. Now, we were really first to the game. So as we transition out of this, I'll tell you why we got into the pultruded fiberglass or the Ultrex product. Originally, this was to help us increase our overall performance from a door manufacturing standpoint. So we use this for our sills, which were a problem for everybody in our industry back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then also, we were an innovator on multi-points. So as we were doing multi-points, we used this to help reinforce the core of those door stiles and rails. We would use this to help us with that. So
Interesting.
the original intent was to use that structural competency of pultruded fiberglass. As we became more and more comfortable with how amazing the technology was in the mid-90s, we developed this product. So this was a pioneer out there. There were other fiberglass brands out there prior to this, but to use the thin wall technology and really go on the scale that we did as a manufacturer was great vision by the Marvin family to make the investments and go forward. And it's been nothing short of an absolute grand slam for us as a product. It's a great complementary product for us that gets out there and really does a lot for builders like yourselves.
Now, before you move on to wood, which looks like to be next in the lineup, you mentioned composite that's not pultruded fiberglass. There are a few window manufacturers that make composites that are a mixture of wood fiber and some type of vinyl. Is that right?
Yeah, and composite as a term is taking two materials, putting them together to make a new material that theoretically takes the best and the worst of those materials forward. So there are a lot of things. It's important to do research because not all composites are done the same. We think a thermal set is second to none because as you use this product, if you put it out in the weather and you put it out in the heat or the cold, it doesn't break down over time. If everything goes there, it doesn't expand and contract. As I said, it basically is inert. It's very still. As you get into, say, a wood vinyl composite, I a lot of times think of decking. Right? There's a lot of decking, and that's really evolved over time to where previously you had to have a lot of gaps there for the movement and where it's at. That happens in windows as well. You get a lot of expansion and contraction when you mix wood and vinyl. You can also get some water retention. Yeah. So again, everybody looks at it differently, but we think fiberglass is the answer. So when you're talking as a builder and you're talking about composites, there are a lot of vinyl manufacturers using their base material, adding a secondary material and saying, here it is. I'd probably want to know what's the percentage of vinyl to the other material and what does that do for expansion and contraction, especially as we lean into colors and finishes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Also, that's a different process, right? It's extruded rather than pultruded.
Yep.
So pushed through a die rather than pulled through.
Oh, interesting.
And I guess why that's important to know from your perspective is it's the extrusion versus the pultrusion process that adds the tensile strength. That's where you get the performance of this, whereas an extrusion does not add any additional strength into
Think
the
pasta
material.
when I think extrusion.
Exactly.
Right? You're pushing
just
that pasta
pushing
through a die.
that through. It's exactly the way to look at it. Versus an extrusion where there's a tension applied to that really stiffens that up during the heating process.
Got it.
Yeah,
that's
that's a great- that's a great
Yeah, that's a
head.
great point.
Yeah.
Thanks, Leno. Let's talk wood for a minute.
Yeah. Now we're showing a wood clad here, but I would say wood itself that's where we started as a business 110 years ago as a wood window manufacturer. Wood is a lot of times at the core of who we identify with to a lot of our customers, but it's not solely who we are. Wood's a great natural insulator, and it's a great resource when you're looking for historic product, or in this day and age, we have a lot of people moving that when they want flexibility. So you have to understand there's a certain amount of maintenance. As long as you have that maintenance in your mind as you do it, this gives you a lot of flexibility on color. So we have some great builders around the country that go with wood specifically. Maybe they do a mahogany, maybe they do a pine, but what they're looking for is they're waiting to get the stone in and some of the other parts of their exterior, and they want to be able to choose that color later so they get that perfect shade.
Yeah.
The color palette
Makes
may be
sense.
picked ahead of time, but they want that perfect shade that really sets those windows off and makes that house its own unique solution. So wood as a product is a significant product for us still today. It's not strictly historic, but I would say it's something that is architecturally driven. So a lot of time you all partner with architects,
Yeah.
and architects have a lot of strong feel. That's something as builder partners, we always recommend partnering not only with the architect, but also us. We can help look at things and problem solve and make sure we just have the right wood solution for you. Sometimes that's mahogany, sometimes that might be another species. Vertical grain fir is always a popular solution there, but a lot of times it's also ponderosa pine.
Let me ask you a question that you're probably not prepped for, but that brought it up for me. Why is Marvin so strong in the architect market? Like when I moved to Texas in 05, I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of Marvin as a brand in 05. And all of a sudden, I've got multiple architects talking about it. You guys had a great showroom through BFS, which was BMC at the time. And it was like, wow, like this is a big deal in this marketplace, even though it wasn't a brand that I knew as like a common brand at that time. And obviously I was a younger builder and had less experience than I do today. But what have you guys done that's driven that architect loving your kind of brand?
In a lot of ways, I think this goes all the way to our beginning. We really want to build products that we can stand behind and believe in. So we believe in the value of architectural design. We believe in the value of human-centered design and making sure that these products help improve the way we're living in our homes these days, adding light, air, everything to it. So we put a heavy emphasis on architectural support and really matching where the architectural expectation or level is in the marketplace today. I would go out to say that I don't know of any other manufacturer that has a heavier investment both from our internal support groups or our external customer-facing teams in terms of architecture-specific sales and engagement people. So our customer-facing group, we're very proud of what we consider our signature services group. So we have a group within our company that basically solves problems. So there are all kinds of stories, great stories early on where Bill Marvin or Frank Marvin would get a phone call from an architect somewhere, in North America saying, "Hey, we need your help. We have we need to solve this problem. Maybe it's a replacement window on a large round top in Nova Scotia. There's a large project, and there were 20 plus of them, and nobody would build it.
Interesting.
And they challenged him, "Can you do it?" And Frank thought about it for a while, and he said, "Let me get with our architectural team." They looked at the problem, figured out how they could solve it, and he came back and said, "Yeah, we can do it. We can do it. Here's our timeline. Here's how we do it. Here's our advice." And that's really the early stages, that signature group of our architectural support group. over time it's evolved, you know, both commercially and residentially. I think we invest more in architecturally correct products than ever. That's why it's important when I talk about substrates. Everything we have has the architectural specifications to follow up. All of our products have an architecturally specified finish. So this is an AMA 2605. It's the best aluminum finish you can put on the product. The fiberglass is what they call an AMA 624. It is the highest level specification across product lines in the fiberglass industry as well. They have very long life cycles. Again, it's important for us to design with intent and design with life cycle and performance, not just aesthetic.
Yeah.
So,
And I would piggyback on that by saying, from what I've seen, when you want to do something different or isn't straight out of the catalog, the architects that I've worked with have liked Marvin because of that. Like, I've got a project that had a bunch of unclad wood windows in a special area, and it was like no big deal for the Marvin people to do that kind of special order, so to speak, even though it wasn't you know, a particularly normal window that's getting built every day.
I'd say it's the fun part of the job right there. You know, you guys get to deal with it every day. People come with unique perspectives or ideas. They have a vision. And when you get into that part, we get to help people accomplish their vision, whether it's yourselves or your customers. I know, you know, from Leno's perspective, I'm sure you agree too, that's where we get to enjoy what we're doing and really create something unique.
Yep.
So we do love it.
Okay, so wood and wood clad we've talked about. What's next on the lineup? Did we miss anything on that?
Well, on the wood clad, now we've evolved from wood to add an aluminum clad. So aluminum is a very durable material, so you're going to see that here. And we use the thickest extrusions you're going to find out on the market. So we have an AMA certified extrusion and finish applied to this. So again, it's about the thickness of a quarter. It's very durable. It can hold up to some extreme elements. You talk about hail, you talk about storms, wind, debris that comes around. This is really going to help add a layer of protection versus maybe a roll form aluminum that if it would take an impact could penetrate that aluminum.
That's a good point.
So we add this, and what you get is you get durability of aluminum with performance of wood. So you get the thermal performances we talked about here, the aesthetic performance, the warmth of the interior, but a better, less maintenance life cycle. So again, you get the low to no maintenance life cycle here based on what we're doing as opposed to others. So this is a bellwether for us. We produce a lot of products here for that custom home builder, that premium high-end builder. I find this to be a great product to discuss and sell. And
Absolutely, and it's kind of, you know, when you think of Marvin, this is the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
Is a clad product.
Yeah.
absolutely, and I would say that's universal. This is where we're at, just like for the reasons when you use and we talked about it. We have so much support around this product, not just from the architectural community, but the builder community, who ultimately understands we don't want callbacks. We want happy customers. We want to achieve their vision, and we think Ultimate has done a great job historically there.
Have you used that window?
Yeah, so you know
recently?
the new office I built for myself a couple of years ago, Chris and I, we have that in our office, a very contemporary, commercial type building. But then 10 years ago, we remodeled another office we owned. It was an old stone cottage. You've been there as well.
Yeah.
It has that same product in it. So we use it in a huge range of different types of architectural designs.
Interesting.
We use
So
it in
not
remodel
just the
and new.
traditional architecture, really.
No, we've put that in modern homes. We put them in mid-century modern homes. We put them in cottages. I mean, we've put them in craftsman style homes. We've used that product all over the place. We think the aluminum cladding has enough color range for us that it's met most of our needs without having to go to a wood exterior, which for maintenance I'm not really game for in this climate. And then you get the warmth and the flexibility of the wood inside, whether you want to stain it or paint it. So that is for us, the window we've installed more than any other window probably in town over the years. And generally speaking, we just install a lot of aluminum clad wood windows. If we're not doing that, we're probably going on to a thermally broken aluminum window.
I like it. Actually, that brings up a question, though, which I wasn't planning on. Hopefully you have an answer for me. How long is that coating on the outside of the aluminum, that colored coating? Is that a 20-year coating? Will I need to repaint that in 30 years? Any idea? I know that's hard to say because we're talking about all kind of climates.
Durability in terms of this, I think our industry standard, we have a 10-year warranty on the finish, but realistically, the AMA specification goes beyond that. So color retention, it's a funny test. So it's really, I think there's a 3-foot and a 6-foot variation test that you have to do, but based on the AMA 2605 specification, best in class, life cycle goes beyond the 10 years on that. So dark colors, it's always important when you get beyond.
In theory, you could paint that though, right? I mean, we have lots of painted aluminum.
Yeah,
So in 30 years or 40 years or 50 years, if I wanted to paint it, I could, couldn't I?
I think you'd have to go through a process there. So it's not as easy as maybe painting wood or fiberglass to this, because you do want to put a treatment on that. So
Right.
this is one where that's why we do the 2605. I don't believe in theory that you will need to repaint this, because one thing we do, and I should point across here, is you have an extruded aluminum sash and frame. We don't mix materials. So what limited fade rates might be there on a dark color
It's
like
going to
this
be all the same.
is going to be universal.
You're never going to notice.
It's hard for the eye to pick up it. You're talking about a minimal fade rate.
Right.
If you
a
start
good point.
mixing materials, vinyl glazing beads, maybe painted sash with aluminum.
Then you're
there's a lot of
really going to
things.
notice it.
Yeah.
That's where you get a challenge. That's
That's
where
a good
cutting
point.
that corner
Yeah.
puts you in a position 10 to 20 years out. You're really frustrated with the look of the color and the elevation.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I like a finish on a car.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to repaint that, you need to go through some processes and prime it and sand it and do all that stuff to get a good finish on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Great point.
yep. Our last frame as we go through this conversation, a lot of good questions, but I don't want to short anybody, is we do have the newest collection here, which is, it's part of Signature, it's part of Marvin, but this is our modern product. So Jeremy was talking about aluminum thermally broke products and the solution it is prevalent here in Texas and really across the country. We developed a pultruted fiberglass, aluminum to the interior, modern product. So this modern product has been the fastest growing product line for us. It's been one of the things that we've been really excited about over the last 4 to 5 years. We just created a new plant in Fargo, North Dakota to help handle the manufacturing, and since then we've expanded twice. So that's the demand level that we have here.
Dang.
The big advantage to this though, and something is, we're still getting the word out to this, but instead of needing a thermally broke aluminum, this is again a fiberglass product. So all those thermal performances we talked about earlier, we do add aluminum to the interior more for a perception thing of people are just used to the feel of aluminum to there. So it's more of a feel, not a performance. It's still, I'm a 2605 finish. There's no fade rates to it, but this to me has been one of the biggest success stories in the fenestration industry over the last number of years, taking fiberglass to the next level. We can do extremely large sizes, very tight glass to frame looks and lines to us there. I think our casement, we go up to 108 inches on an operating casement.
Wow.
And again, we've talked about it. Homes like this may only have 1 or 2 operators in there, but where you have it, you want it to still be aesthetically correct for the elevation and the look. So
Yep.
they're generally larger than a lot of the other products we have.
Is that aluminum clad on the outside? Is that what I'm seeing?
No, it's actually,
It looks shiny right there.
this is the interior.
Oh,
So
that's
this
the
is
interior.
This
Okay.
is the exterior here. So this is a high density fiberglass product. Now, it is a slightly different version
Fiberglass.
of fiberglass because it has to have the density to hold the weight. You're talking about, in some instances, hundreds of pounds just in glass. So you can get a unit on this, and we put the weights of our units on there just so everybody on the job site can be safe, right? But you know, it's nothing to see an 800-pound assembly coming out of the job
That's
site.
a heavy
So
window.
Yep.
Lino's team, your teams, you have to know that, you have to
Yeah,
plan for it. So
yeah.
when you're working from us, from the time Lino quotes that through, we're going to make sure we're communicating not only sizes and specifications, but weights and help with the planning as we get out there.
Interesting.
on
So
the
it's
job
not exact. It's not like you just took this Ultrex material and made a different window out of
That's
it. You
right.
actually have some material innovations in there as well.
100%. We really did. We evaluated the market that was out there, looked at a lot of aluminum brands, and tried to make a decision. I mean, there were paths to be made, and the leadership really leaned into that. This technology is a proven player in a lot of levels, but it can really add an advantage when you start talking about this more modern, large assembly, large unit solution that people
Yeah.
are looking for. So
Yeah.
again, we get great thermal performance, we get great ratings to this, and we get great durability and flexibility as well. Again, as we're showing this in an ebony, but we have it in the gunmetal, we have it in white. We can split finish this, so maybe you have a drywall
Gunmetal.
return
I like
to the
that.
interior of the white. So this gives you a lot of flexibility on that aesthetic option, while delivering that look and performance that the homeowners are really demanding this day. And I will say, we knew this would be extremely popular in the Western United States, the Southwest, but there's really not a market where this hasn't been successful. So you get to the lake regions of the upper Midwest, you get to the Northeast, the Southeast, people are asking for this by name. And I think a lot of that comes to our relationship in the architectural community and really helping communicate through that for this.
And because it's not aluminum on the outside, you're not worried about it in coastal areas?
We're not. We actually, it's funny you bring that up. There is one last type of product that we're actually focused on our coastal, but in the coastal areas, you do get the benefit of like salt sprays and things like that. So depending on where
The
you're
benefit
at,
of salt spray, is that what you meant
the
to say?
benefit of salt spray tests, because salt spray can be a real detractor for the aluminum product. What we have, if you don't have an 2605 finish on your aluminum, you're going with lesser finishes, salt can really tear it up. We have a company called Coastline, which is new to the Marvin family, just a few years back, and it's based out of Florida. It's a Florida product. It's designed around those very extensive Florida codes, and it's something that's new to us, and we're really building that out as well. It's a beautiful product there.
Is that available to other people though? Like if you're building on other coasts or other areas, or you're looking for that really high wind, can you buy that same spec in other places?
You can in some markets. I will say that based on a Florida design, it's really focused on the southern third of the U.S., so we can get access to it. We have the ability, like in Texas, so and if you look in Galveston, places like that, we absolutely sell it there. We're not moving our way up the northeast coast just yet because we still have to work on our thermal break performance. There's a whole different set of requirements in terms of thermal performance down there that you can achieve more with the glass than the frame itself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that someone had a question on, so let me throw it in.
Yeah.
On this product, you can get split finishes.
Yeah.
Is that generally true across the board, like on even an Essential or an Elevate? Can I get a dark finish in and a white out, or vice versa, that sort of thing? Can you get split finishes on most of your products?
You can, limited, so on the Elevate, you can do a white interior or an ebony, but those are about the only ones you can do on that Elevate.
Okay, gotcha.
The Essential, you can do white and then do dark colors on the exterior. You just can't, vice versa, you can't do white on the exterior and black.
You color match to that.
Oh,
so
I
there's
gotcha.
some in there.
Some limitations,
There's some
but yes,
nuances.
you can do the two.
And then when you get into the higher products, you can probably do kind of whatever you want, I'm assuming, on those.
That now you're talking species, you're talking about interior finishes, stain or paint. There's a lot of flexibility that comes along with that. We've got a great process and quality control in our plants there in Warroad and Ripley for that. So as you move through the line, by the time you get to Ultimate, you need a lot of options and flexibility. Again, our goal in every level of this collection is to focus heavily on performance and design and design intent. As you need more flexibility, you have a tendency to move yourself up into the Ultimate product line because that is, again, the ultimate. It has the best levels of flexibility and performance in the industry.
I'm curious, from your company, do you mainly do pre-finished interiors, or do you actually prefer the opposite, where your painter, your stain guy, your whomever can finish later on the job? What do you like?
I would love to do it. The issue is, look, we're buying windows when we're forming up slabs now. I mean, literally, we're buying windows 25, 30 weeks before we need them. The interior color schemes aren't baked at that point,
Right.
and they're often varying from room to room anyway. If we've got tile and other finishes in those rooms, so we can't really do that. We get them pre-primed often, and that's a great benefit when they show up at the job site, already having them primed. But we normally just paint all of our interiors.
That's great.
So I think it would be difficult for us to pull that off.
It gives you some flexibility. Now, of course, we're recording this in 2023. We went through some crazy supply chain stuff during the COVID action, but even if you're watching this video in 2027, I think there is some interesting wisdom, whether your lead times are 12 weeks or 30 weeks, on having that flexibility of having just a primed window that's going to get taken care of later. The one thing that I like about a unfinished window is I'm less worried about job site protection immediately too. Like when I've got a pre-finished window, I'm usually baking some money in the budget for my laborers, for some window protection tapes, and then almost always if we're filming something, we're unfilming it too and then redoing it to make sure that we don't have an issue with too many weeks of stickiness on whatever finish, residue exactly. So that can be a benefit I can see, Jeremy.
And too, we're using all different types of paints, all different types of sheens. And so a lot of our casement details and our trim details are rolling into the jambs of the windows. We want to paint them all at the same time, with the same product, with the same sheens. And so again, having them not pre-painted gives us that ability to tie it all together with the same product, and we're shooting it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So-
This is a spring market, by the way.
Yeah.
So
it
not
is.
every market is. There's some brush markets out there.
Yeah.
But that's a really big
I
deal.
mean,
if you're in a
we're going to
spring
be taping
market.
off anyway, I guess is what I'm saying. So we might as well tape it all the way off and just go one time.
Yeah, that makes
So I
sense.
think that's pretty common for us. But I do love having them pre-primed. We wouldn't want to send them out not that way in this market.
Yeah.
We sell more of that pre-finish on, you know, short cycle builds like remodels, renovations,
Yeah.
replacements.
Yeah.
You know, that's when we do a lot more of the pre-finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, one question that's come up a bunch in the questions, and we're not really in Q&A time yet, but I thought it'd be worth addressing. If you've got a project and you're really looking for a high performance window, not just a window that meets code, but is much higher than code, what options do I have, and when should I be talking to Marvin about that?
Well, that's a great question, and this is one of those best rules is engage early. So we mentioned it earlier. We invest heavily in the architectural side of the business, the technical sales side of the business. So we have a lot of solutions that maybe, you know, we haven't done locally because it hasn't been asked for before, but it doesn't mean we haven't done it prior. So I always recommend that you lean into your, if you have an architect, reach out. If not, you can reach out to our architectural sales staff and we'll find out what you're looking to accomplish early in the process so we can plan for it. A lot of times we have some flexibility in design, whether it's tri-pane, whether it's coatings, you know, whether it's window type, to say, hey, here's some solutions that can help get you to where you want to be and how we can work better with the envelope. So this is where I have a lot of confidence in our organization as a whole that we're really made to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
But the later you wait in the cycle, sometimes you may be beyond a few set of key decisions to where it becomes difficult to do that, and it can become frustrating. So I just ask for people, when performance, you know, is part of your design, get us involved early. We're here to partner.
And you guys can do triple glaze. You
Yeah.
guys can do those U factors that have the higher numbers. Can you compete with the European manufacturers on performance numbers?
We absolutely can. Like any manufacturer, they generally have areas they're going to lean to for their strengths versus ours, but we don't shy away from performance. Again, we have a solution for about every call, and it just is a matter of making sure we're there first. So again, if it comes in later and you design everything around that other manufacturer's specifications, you also limit yourself to their specifications, and that's where you're going to have to probably make some choices and give where you might not want to give, and then you end up with a product you didn't necessarily intend for.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Before we move on this window frame topic, I want to spend a few minutes and get some advice from each one of you on budgeting and how to budget. You know, and we've got an interesting range here between a manufacturer, a dealer, and builders. Let's start with you, Leno. Okay. You know, if you've got a builder watching this that's not familiar with these lines, is trying to figure out how do I budget this, you know, maybe a builder who's only been in business for a short period of time, or maybe someone who's not even in the business is going to build a custom home. What do you tell them about budget, and how do you tell them about trying to figure out where things are going to land?
That's a good question, because a lot of people will take that set of plans or that request from the builder and just quote what they know. And I think the best thing to do is to ask them, you know, what's your budget on this? You know, what price range are you building in? Because there are other products, vinyl and other composites, that fit a niche. But when you're looking at higher end price points and people are really looking at the quality of the products, I think that's where I start pointing them a different direction. So I think it's important to ask early on, you know, and sometimes you can tell by looking at the plans. But there are some builders that are building really big houses and still using vinyl windows. So
Yeah.
I like to get in early in the process and ask the questions, hey, where do we stand as far as budget, so that we can start. And, you know, what is important to you? Is it, you know, longevity of a product? Is it just energy efficiency? And then start touching on those and then try to steer them in the right direction.
If a builder has a window and door schedule from their architect, from their plan set, how hard is it for you to take that window and door schedule and give them a quote on an Essential or two other Marvin options, or maybe even other manufacturers? Is that a doable thing for your salespeople? Or is that something that they're trying to avoid because it's just a ton of work putting together each individual one?
You know, takeoffs can take some time, you know, so it can be frustrating sometimes for the sales team to quote things multiple times. So that's why I always tell them, ask the question, you know, find out where they need to be as far as price point, and then steer them in the right direction. But Marvin and a lot of the other manufacturers give us quote tools to use.
Yeah.
So it's not like when I first started and we were flipping through a book to get pricing and
Yeah.
adders and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. You can do it all on their quote tool. So it's a, I would say it averages anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to do a complete takeoff.
Okay, so it takes some time.
It does.
One thing I used to do way back in the day was we would have a window size that was a common one, and this actually goes back to my production builder days in the late 90s, where we'd have, I can't remember what size it was, it's called a 3050, and we would have our estimator on January 1 call around to several different manufacturers and say, hey, we're going to be doing a lot of 3050 single hungs. What's a 3050 single hung from you cost? Is there a version of that today that you could say, on this standard window, whether it's fixed or operable, give me a price on this, this, and this from Marvin, and then it allows me to extrapolate for my clients that are coming in to visit with me to give a good idea of what the window budget should be?
We could, absolutely. We could do that, but the problem is now from, say, 10, 15, even 20 years ago are the options. And the options,
So many of them.
right, there's so many of them, and they all, there's an adder for them. So
Yeah.
it's real hard to take a 3050. I could give you a 3050 of the basic white and say it's $500. That same window with different options could go up to $1,000. So it's real hard to do that unless you're very clear about all the specific options.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you bring up an interesting perspective. Is I look at it as there's different levels of experience around this. If you've come from a production background and that's where you learn the business, a lot of times you probably undervalue what the windows and doors, interior doors included. We have a great brand, True Style, that I know you use.
Yeah.
That's an amazing product. That is a gold standard for interior doors from a design, performance, feel.
Yeah.
It really changes the interior of the home in a very positive way. But again, price is not going to be the number one point of that.
Right.
You've got to
Right.
understand value. So we always hit value. And I guess I would ask you, when you're looking at one, because you're playing in a premium segment for sure, not a production. I think production builders would like to see that percentage of the project be sub 2%, really sub 1.5%, which is not realistic. But
No, we're nowhere near that.
Nowhere.
Look,
Yeah.
we're talking about premium products, and we're building premium homes, and I think people have to touch and feel and interact with these things. I don't think you sell these things on a spreadsheet or off quote sheet, right?
No.
So thankfully, I think you said it. When the architecture rolls out and you look at it and you start interacting with the client and the designer, and we like to get involved super early in these processes in pre-construction. We got to get them to a showroom and let them see one of these windows and feel one of these windows, grab a True Style door and feel how heavy it is when it opens and closes, right? And I think that's how you pick a window for a project like a bespoke one-off custom home. And then the clients have to make some hard decisions about whether or not they want to invest in that level of quality for their home. And it is more of a value conversation and less of a pure price conversation, because once they get in there and they see these things and they understand what they really are, these windows are going to be on this house for 50 years. Right. There's aesthetic and performance and longevity issues and serviceability and things like that. Like, it's easier to say, yeah, no, this is what they cost now. It's easier to have that conversation versus just show me 3 quotes and they get kind of sticker shock off of it.
Right.
So I think that's all part of the process of speccing and designing, and that's a long process. You go through it all the time in pre-construction. It's a long time.
And I do think you point out one other good thing, that we have a philosophy at Marvin that we really lean into the independent channel. So, BFS is, it's a large independent, but it's a lumberyard and it's a large independent business, but they have window specialists. They're focused on providing value, and our dealer base as a whole, really, they have to have a level of expertise. So the showroom is always a component where they have an excellent showroom here.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a great experience
Yeah.
because generally your customers are experts in their given fields,
Right.
but building a home, they are leaning for you to be an expert.
Yeah.
You have a lot of things to help them solve. If you can go into one place and they can feel the quality
Yeah.
of a 9-foot or 10-foot tall door
Yep.
and the operation of that, they start to understand a little differently on where they're at. So I always emphasize that for us, we focus on best in quality independent. We purposely are not in box stores
Yep.
because that's not a premium, that's a commodity approach to selling. And you have a lot of your customers go in there and say,
Don't buy from them.
I
That's a
saw this at
mistake.
Home Depot, and it's like, well, that's not the exact
It's a
thing that we
huge
use.
mistake. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten calls from people that have done that, let's say for replacement windows to their house, and they have an unknowledgeable salesperson, and they get a window order that's wrong, and now you got to fight a big box store based on that, whereas Leno and all his people are experts in it. They understand the product catalog, and you don't have 50 window brands either, right?
Right.
How many do you guys sell in terms of overall versus how many you mostly sell?
So we're such a big corporation that we have access to a lot of window manufacturers, but we, in our market specifically, we probably have 10 different window lines. We sell the majority of 3 different manufacturers. That is kind of
Which means when I talk to one of your people and get a quote, they really understand the product.
That's right.
correct.
They're not doing other things one minute and then coming over the window department.
Right, and we've made a concerted,
That's right.
a concerted effort over the
call them.
past,
Exactly.
I guess what the merger happened about 3 years ago or so?
Yeah, something like that.
So we started to pull all of our window business out of those lumber yards and millworks and put them in a standalone where we can service it, showroom it, have salespeople there. So when you call that department, you're not speaking to a millwork specialist, you're speaking to a window specialist.
And as a builder, that cuts down on mistakes. That cuts down on time. It makes it a more profitable conversation for you across the multiple levels, not just the actual transaction of our window. But again, we believe Leno and his team are experts. We believe that expertise minimizes the risk. It minimizes the cost. And this day and age, people are building bigger, more complicated products. And so every time you all can mitigate your risk and just deal with expertise, it's one less thing on your plate. So I think as a builder, having the right partners with the right showrooms, critical in the process of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it makes sense. Let me go back to you, Tim, and ask you, because you told us when we went to, let's say, the elevator, the essential line, which is that pull-treated, that you're going to see maybe no difference in cost from, let's say, a vinyl, which might be the base level, to maybe 10 or 15% or maybe more. What are we looking at when we go from that pull-treated fiberglass to a wood with an aluminum cladding on the outside? Is that 100% more for that product? Is that 20% more?
It's not 100%. If we look at this product as an alternative, the difference might be 25%. The more options you start to put in, the more light cuts, things like that, you start to have some different details. So there's, the look would be similar, but again, because there's more options, there's more costs associated to how we build the other product line. It could be a little more than that, but I would think that from a budget standpoint, again, you're looking at 25 to 30% max to that. But again, if you pick the right options with doors, especially, it can get close real fast because again, you have other manufacturers using different materials, large doors. They have to put costs in that because of the service side. So it really depends on what you're picking.
And double hungs versus casements, and a lot of times people will see, say, an entry-level product that only has single hungs, and then they compare that to a double hung, and the price is,
it's not a fair comparison.
It's not a fair comparison, so
right.
you got to definitely look at those
right.
details as well.
Jeremy, we skipped you when we were talking about the budget. How do I budget? Advice on budgeting. Any good advice from your 30 years of construction knowledge? And before you answer that, I do want to say that I think it's interesting that you and I were talking before the program started that we have a minimum spec. We won't do certain windows.
Right.
Some of that's based on being burned in the past and not having good performance out of those. I think also the longer you're a builder, the more you value spending money on windows too. And some of the young folks out there, including me, didn't realize the value of a long-lasting window that really operates and works great a decade or two later when I'm visiting the house, like I did when I was building some of my first houses. But what advice do you have for the folks watching on budgeting, estimating, choosing windows in general?
Yeah. No, I think it's important to have a conversation with the client about the whole life cycle of owning their home, because the homes that we're lucky enough to build for people, they're not flipping these things in 3 to 5 years. These are almost like inheritable type homes, right? They're going to raise their kids in these homes. They're going to grow old in these homes. They might give this home to their kids at some point. These are incredible, pieces of architecture and construction. And so we really have to think with a super long lens in these conversations, right? It's not about how low can we get this price point to get you in there. It's like, okay, you're going to live in this thing for 30 to 40 years. Your kids might inherit this home, and that product and this manufacturer is going to be there, for that whole time.
That's great.
And so you got to think about the total cost of owning this window, right? And luckily, most of the clients that we're working for, and the architects that we get a chance to work with, they're designing these products in from the get, right? I mean, they're in the spec already. You roll out the plans, and you recognize that to get these size of openings and these types of operations and to execute these sorts of interior trim details, these floor-to-ceiling windows, you're going to need a product of this caliber. There's just no way to execute the project with any other type of window. Some of it, what we're being hemmed into here in Austin too, is just code related too. I mean, there's windows that I installed 10 years ago. Thankfully, I can't install now. I can't make that same mistake again because the city is saving me from that with code. So, I think we're just fortunate in that most of the plans that we're looking at have already got a product like this kind of baked in as a baseline assumption.
Yeah.
And then from there, we're just dialing in a lot of the details about finishes, interior finishes, species, operators, things of that nature.
Any advice on operators or particular windows that you like?
Be amazed how many awnings I put in. I mean, I feel like for the first 20 years of my career, I put in like no awnings. Now I just put in awnings everywhere. So I feel
Except for where you need egress, because you can't always get that with an awning.
Exactly. So we do a lot of casements, a lot of awnings. It's interesting how our market has shifted away from the single double hung. It just seems to me we do a lot of fixed windows with an awning, a lot of fixed windows with a casement. I can't remember the last time I did a house of like full double hung windows. It seems like it's been a long time.
It's like a gone animal in this market.
And I'm also surprised. We do a lot of just push out. Casements as well.
I really like the push-out casement. I have one of them in my house.
Yeah,
and
no,
I
they're
freaking
just
love it.
so easy to operate, and I think the technology on that's come a long way. And you have a lot less hardware in the way that you have to look at visually, so it's cleaner from the inside. So I'd like to put more of those in, to be quite honest with you.
And the other thing I wanted to mention that you didn't, I heard you talk about earlier, was fixed windows can be a great budget saver, right? You think about some window that has action on it, whether it's a casement, a double hung, whatever, and you switch to a fixed, even if it's an expensive, top of the line window, it's going to be way less cost than that operable version of that. And if you're watching this in Wisconsin, I'm sure you're opening your windows all night. The boys in Texas, the last 60 days, it's never gotten below the set point on my air conditioner. If you look at the last 60 days, it's never gotten below 72 here in Austin, even at the dead of night. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of operable windows, frankly. At my house, when I built it 2 years ago, I put fixed, operable where I needed by code, fixed. And now I don't have screens to bother with or pay for. I have less worry about air infiltration. It's just an easier window to set. It's a lighter window, and it's a less cost window. I mean, obviously that's not going to work everywhere, but that works for me.
Yeah, no, I would echo that. We see that quite a bit, and I'm a fan of it. They're not going to rack. I mean, to me, overall, there's just fewer moving parts, right? Yep. Fewer things that can fail, and for a builder, you want more of that.
I like more reliability.
More reliability for sure.
We're almost wrapped up. We got a couple of questions, and I hope you don't mind, guys, who ask questions. I kind of sprinkled a bunch of the questions already in. Here's a random one that was a great one. Are storm windows even a thing anymore? Do people order storms? Can you get storm windows? I don't even know.
They're less and less of a thing. You can get them
in this area.
Yeah.
That's probably a northern.
It's a northern thing. A lot of times it's a wood storm, things like that. It's part of an aesthetic form historically. So there are things you can get, but I would say they're less and less in demand as the performance of product has gotten better.
Yeah. Does Marvin offer a tilt turn window?
We used to offer a tilt turn. We've actually moved away from the tilt turn. It didn't have a lot of call for it. So mainly a European driven product. It was very popular in the early 2000s and things like that. But as size and sight lines have come into play, the casement, the push out casement, things like that have a much more contemporary sight line to it, and people have gravitated towards that solution.
The hardest part for tilt turn for me, and I've actually installed quite a bit of them, is what do you do with the blinds or the window coverings? Because now you got a frame that's coming into the house, and the normal kind of blinds that you like that might be set into the frame or even overhead. Yeah. Well, now your window's hitting that, and it's just a real pain. Where in Europe, when I've traveled through Europe, almost all the houses have some type of exterior window shade, which I really like. It makes a lot of sense. Also easier there. They don't hardly wood frame anything like we do in America. So if you've got a big, thick 12-inch masonry wall, let's say, really easy to build in an exterior frame and hide it. Not so much if you're building 2x6 walls, let's say. You don't have this huge cavity you can slide things into. Have you had any experience with that at all?
Zero.
Okay. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's the hard part about tilt turns.
Never even been asked for one.
Never been asked one.
So
okay.
I think
Anyways.
probably why you don't make them.
Yeah, just really started, the demand shifted with the contemporary.
You still make the venting casement though, don't you? That pops
The
out,
venting
I put
picture?
Yeah, the venting picture.
And again, we're not making that anymore either.
Really?
Oh, interesting.
Again, just one of those things where it kind of got to the low point of demand. We moved on for it.
Yeah.
We think that, again, the push to awnings and the way awnings have come around, that was a solution for that previously. Now people are just moved to awnings.
Yeah. Let's ask this last question, and we'll probably end on this. As always, lots of performance questions. Appreciate that, guys. Let me summarize 4 or 5 performance questions and say, what is some of the highest U factors we can get from a Marvin standpoint? Frame, window, the whole shebang as a unit. Do you have any idea what the higher U factors are on some of your performance products?
I mean, I think this is where I probably am not the best expert to this. Admittedly, what you need to do, I know what we have to do to sell it, what the actual number in terms of the lowest, and I know that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's
so I'm
what
afraid
we're looking for. I
I'm
got a
gonna
bunch of nerds like me
I'm going to
out
sell
there.
myself short, I think, on this. But what you want to do, I mean, you would lean towards our ultimate series of product lines. You're starting to look at tri-panes. You're looking at the coatings that go onto that. Sometimes we mix in a laminated piece of glass that helps along the way as well. But I know that as you get into specifically in the upper Northeast, so Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, there's a lot of local regulatory where we can play strongly there.
Yeah.
You get into our business in Canada. We still do quite a bit of business in Canada. They have a next level in terms of that U value performance, and we compete well in Toronto and Montreal and places like that as well.
I suspect it's not a huge part of your product offering, but I would tell those listening, when I've been to the IBS display, by the way, these guys over the years have had amazing displays. Come to IBS if you're not planning on it this year. Are you going to IBS this year?
I don't know if I'm going to make it.
You need to make it, dude. We got all kinds of stuff happening at IBS. And actually, I don't even know. I hope I didn't put you on the spot. Is Marvin going to be at IBS this year?
We're not at IBS.
Okay, they won't be there this year. In the past,
Yeah.
they've had a Passive House window display from Marvin, a window that met Passive House standards, and man, it was a really nice window. And if I remember correctly, it was a push-out casement style, if I remember correctly. So if you're doing a really high-performance product, if you're doing a rated product, talk to a dealer like BFS. Marvin probably on your website has a list of dealers and locations where you can see and touch and feel. Is that true?
It is. I would say, again, our local dealers are a great starting point always for us, but they can reach into our internal staff and we can answer, again, solve any of these performance questions you're looking for. We also have one other unique thing that we don't talk about enough, which is we have a design center in Boston called Seven Tide.
I
It's
know
a great
about this.
great spot. Very design centric, but we have some design experts around that too. So there's multiple places to start asking questions, and again, the question is, how can we? That's what you're trying to figure out. You're trying to, how can we meet this level? How can we take it to the next spot? And again, number one is going to be people like Leno's team to start with, but Leno knows to get access to our team or even our Seven Tide designers. Just a lot of people who are passionate about performance and windows. A lot of access to it.
Yeah, and let me add, and let me close with, for me, the person who sells me my windows over the years is a critical part of my business. And we really have maybe just 1 or 2 vendors over the years, even if we've had multiple brands spec'd. So Leno and his team's a big part of it. I do have one other dealer that I work with sometimes on a couple other products. They're huge for me. That's how I get my pricing. A lot of times I'll send them a set of plans and say, hey, can you give me a ballpark if I run it with this manufacturer or this style of Marvin? So I know we weren't able to give you your specific, this is a $727 window in this configuration answer that I know a lot of you asked, but that ballpark question can be a great way to go too. Call a dealer, send them your plans and say, hey, I'm not looking for you to spend 3 hours to give me a bid on all this, this, and this. Give me a ballpark. What range should I be in? I mean, Leno and his team sees numbers going out the door every day. Jeremy and I probably have a pretty good sense when we in our estimating teams are looking at plans. When they get the plans, we had an old joke back in our office. We could tell by how thick the plans are how expensive the house was going to be. But it was just an experience joke, right? The longer you've been in it, the more you get a sense for it. Another funny thing was we used to have this game in my office when we were like a 4-man team where we'd get a bid in for something, And one of my guys would always be like, all right, let's guess what this bid is from this sub, whether it's Windows or whatever. And man, I almost invariably I was within 5%, and it would piss off my team that I wasn't even the estimator. I wasn't even in it all the time, and I would always be like 5%. I bet you guys do that too, don't
We
you?
have all sorts of laughs about that.
The guessing game is fun.
It's actually good because it actually is a way to self-tune yourself.
That's
because not to get totally off topic
No, I
here,
like
but
it. It's
clients
on
all the
topic.
time in architecture like, hey, what do you think this is going to cost? And the more you give yourself those little feedback loops,
Yes.
and the more you
right.
sort of dial that sixth sense in, that's not a joke. That's called experience.
It's called wisdom.
Part of what you're selling.
That's right.
And that's part of what your architects and your clients are asking you. And in a pre-construction process, as people are riffing through value engineering options, you can really be beneficial to your client and say,
There's a
hey,
reason we have
listen,
gray hair.
we don't really need to go bid this thing with Leno and his team, because I'll tell you, it isn't going to work.
Right.
You know,
That's
it's
right.
only
This-
going to, it's
this
only
window
going to,
budget I'm seeing here doesn't match
It's
with
only
your
going to go down
expectations.
10%. You think it's going to save you 30%. It's not. Let's not spend the time redesigning. We'll spend more money redesigning than we're going to save. So I think having that ability to do that is a critical skill in the front end sales process to set good expectations.
That's right, and be
with people.
friends with that window salesperson so that you have that, you can get that feedback loop even if you're inexperienced.
Right, I'd like to touch on performance, because one thing that our specialists not only do a takeoff, but they're also looking for, meeting code, right? Egress, all those sort of things they want to catch. But
That's a
we
great
can
point.
also send U-factor and solar heat gain coefficients
Yeah.
with that quote, so the customer can see the performance of that product.
That's a great call.
And I guess with your team as well, the people that are following you, I would say, is lean into your local dealer and our local team. So I always challenge people, I love having conversations with builders to just say, why Marvin? So again, obviously we have a stage to talk about here, but I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
What's more importantly is let's talk about your project, because it does change. If you tell me this is what I want to know, it might be a $763 window, but if we're having a conversation, I might be able to make a few suggestions and say, listen, I can accomplish your goal, but I can do it in this way, and maybe now it's a $663.
That's a great point.
So this is where the two of us
Value
work.
engineering's
We do the best, and I don't even consider it value engineering. So I just think
a
it's
dirty
value.
word in our
That's
business.
right. Yeah.
Optimizing the window
Yeah.
selection to meet your needs.
Optimization. We like that.
Optimization.
That's
Yes,
right.
Jeremy.
Solution
You're in marketing,
optimization.
aren't you?
See, this was an engineer by education right here. He knew it. I like it. So, but again, most manufacturers this way, but we live and breathe it. We love our customers. The building community, the architectural community, the design community that we all play in, we're all for it. So I would just encourage anybody, reach out to your local team, including our team, and just say, why Marvin? And we're there to give you the answer. We're there to help you on your
That's right.
projects. So,
Get to know people. That's a huge,
That's right.
huge win in our business. Guys, really appreciate your time. Thank you for watching as well. Jeremy, what's your Instagram handle? Is it at Risher Martin?
It is.
Risher Martin. You can go follow these guys on the gram. Amazing fixed price builder here in Austin, Texas, doing awesome stuff. Of course, Leno and his team, you can get a hold of those guys through BFS. If you're not currently a BFS customer, I've been with them for like 20 years now. Amazing team, and it's all about the actual people though. So get connected with the people. And Marvin, give us all the contact info, Tim. How do we get a hold of Marvin? Website's marvin.com, right?
Yep. I think marvin.com is always the great place to start. If you're interested in learning more about the product, we have all the information. We can get pretty deep into that in terms of performance. You've also got the ability to find that local dealer. So we have the dealer locator for you. It's going to help prioritize and get you there. And more importantly, if you just have a specific question, through that you can just reach out, ask for an expert, ask the question, and one of our team members will reach out to you directly and help you with your project. So marvin.com to me is a great place to go. Obviously, we are on Instagram. We're on all the social media under the Marvin brand. Again, True Style is another great product.
The Marvin brand is your
Marvin
handle.
brand,
Yeah.
the Marvin brand. And True Style, if you're looking at interior doors or entry doors, they got two great solutions there. Amazing story to tell.
Yeah, some
and our
really
friends
nice
in
products.
Florida, Coastline, it's one of the fastest growing products in Florida. So
That's awesome.
it's really great to be here though, Matt. It's been great following your career. We've known each other over the
Long
years.
time.
Give and
My
take
first
and stuff.
house had Marvin in it.
Yeah,
Put a lot of Marvin in over the years.
It's been a while, and it's just fun to see what you guys are doing. Great to meet you as well. It's
Thanks
awesome.
for Marvin for sponsoring, for sure. Guys, if you're watching this pre-recorded, we do these live about once a month or so. Somewhere below will be a link to our newsletter. We send out a newsletter from my team on Tuesdays and Fridays, and believe it or not, we're up to like 13, 14 new videos a week on buildshownetwork.com or thebuildshow.com, same website. I'd love to have you sign up for our newsletter. That way you'll know when we've got new live stuff coming out. I really appreciate the, 30 or 40 of you that put Q&A out today. I wasn't able to get to quite everybody, but we're going to give the contact info to Marvin. Hopefully they can follow up if we missed one of your questions. That being said, guys, follow us on TikTok or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.